Okay, so last week I launched a surface colony to the surface of Minmus, along with an orbiting Minmus space station, all in a single launch, and it was great. But now I want to build bigger and further away. Like I'll build it in the same place, but I'll be sending it further away. This is a great start. Let's try that again. Welcome back, everyone, to another Kerbal Space Program video. And I'm once again back in the Lowne Aerospace 3 save file, ready to continue with our new goal of solar system colonization. The Mun and Minmus now both have permanent residence, and I do mean permanent here. Let's be honest, I am never going to do a crew swap for them. And so today I'm making the next logical step in expanding our operations. I'm going to send a gigantic crewed space station to low Duna orbit and build a large, self-sustaining habitat on the surface that can keep the station and surface base sustained with water and food and stuff. Today we're going to be focusing on just the space station, which I'm constructing out of both stock components and the amazing space station components that can be found in Nertea's Stockalike Station Parts Expansion Redux mod. A link to download can be found in the description, of course, and if you're a channel member or Patreon supporter, then there'll also be a download link for you to get the craft file that is rapidly coming together on your screen. In fact, looking at the screen, construction of the space station itself is pretty much done. I'm just adding some SAS units and batteries at the top there. And yeah, you can pretty much see how it all comes together. It is, of course, going to be a single launch monolithic structure, just because I find that very large space stations that are launched as separate modules in Kerbal Space Program, they tend to be quite vulnerable to Kraken attacks. And, you know, I just thought for free IVA, we're going to be like doing a little tour inside the base and moving from module to module. I just thought it'd be easier for just all of the modules to be completely connected, not connected via docking ports. They were connected in the vehicle assembly building, which of course then creates a new challenge of how do we even get this thing to orbit and then get it to Duna? And, you know, ideally having all that be in one launch and not having to do a separate launch of an interplanetary tug to push it from low carbon orbit to, well, Duna orbit. And, well, I guess that question has sort of been answered on screen. We're going to be doing it by using a giant rocket, a massive, massive rocket. We have 4 Saturn V size pieces surrounding the space station. I initially did it like this, where they were like single stacks, so like an upper stage and a lower stage all placed around the space station. Then during test flights, that didn't really work, because when it came to stage separation, the lower stage would just fall down and crash into the station and destroy stuff. So I've kind of got the lower stage and upper stage both attached radially. I don't know if this description is really making sense, but it's on screen, right? So hopefully by using the power of vision and the power of my my ability, my limited ability to speak has helped you understand what I'm trying to get at here. I did have to add quite a lot of Sepratron solid rocket boosters to these things as well, just to make sure they're definitely getting pulled clear of that central structure, because they're big and heavy. They don't detach very quickly, and we want them to detach quickly so they don't hit the space station, especially that big, long service arm that has the radiators. You can kind of see it there, the radiators and the solar arrays. We don't want those to be destroyed before we've even, begun our journey to Duna. I'm adding this little thing to the side here. This is going to be a scout lander. So I said earlier, this is going to be part 1 of 2, and in part 2 we send a surface base to, you guessed it, the surface base of Duna. The Duna, it's not the flattest planet, right? And we kind of want to be landing somewhere with interesting scenery, so the Kerbals have something to look at while they spend the rest of eternity on the surface base. And also, from a video standpoint, it's nice to have good scenery in the background, right? And we want it to be relatively flat in the area where the lander actually lands, or the surface colony actually lands, I should say. So it took me so long to say all that, it's off the screen now. But I was building a little remote-controlled aircraft that will glide down, and you can do a little bit of scouting, a little bit of reconnaissance on the surface of Duna to see if we can find an optimal place to send our colony. So basically then the scout will just stay there, and then we can set it as our target and use it as a kind of like an indicator where to aim for when we're doing our colony descent. Yes, got through it in the end. Now that was actually it for the build, but then I came back this morning ready to fly the mission, and I was like, you know what? It might make more sense if there's some sort of lifeboat on the station, so if it needs to suddenly be evacuated. At the moment, the Kerbals is just going to meet a horrible fate. But not anymore. I've built this little thing. It's a lifeboat with 9 seats on board. My intention is to have 9 crew on board this space station. So yeah, in an event where they need to suddenly leave for whatever reason, there is a lifeboat. And I decided to add 2 just, for redundancy's sake. And, if we have 9 Kerbals on the surface base and then they happen to be visiting, like maybe it's Christmas dinner or something, and then They all need to evacuate? Well, there we are. And, you know, that's it. I have nothing else to add. The only thing left to do before launch, of course, is to time warp to a Duna transfer window. So again, sing it with me. If you draw a line from Kerbin to the sun to Duna, the angle that line falls to the sun should be about 45 degrees. I tend to use the lens flare of the sun to help me with that. I just eyeball it. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend using a transfer window planner or some kind of tool like that. People like criticize my video saying, "Oh, Matt doesn't do things properly." I'm like, I don't do this. Just don't do anything that I do, guys, basically. But here we are about to launch. And this is the first time that you will be seeing this launch, but it's not my first attempt at flying it. Remember earlier when I struggled articulating the change I made to the first stage surround boosters? Well, here's a clip of the failed launch attempt when I had it as 4 separate stacks rather than 8 when staging. The boosters just didn't clear the structure without causing untold harm and destruction. So there you are. Transparency, something I always try and provide in my videos, but something that's a little bit harder to get when trying to understand media coverage of world events, inconsistency of which is something that we see every day, which is why I'm working with Ground News for this video. Ground News was founded by a former NASA engineer and is a news site that allows you to compare articles from a wide range of sources to help you verify the story and to view the full picture. Every Ground News story comes with a simple visual breakdown of each publisher's political bias, source factuality, and ownership, and their headlines. And to make sure Ground News is truly neutral, it's backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. Remember Starship's 9th flight test back in May this year? Over 200 sources covered this, with most leaning centrally, 28% leaning left, and 19% leaning right. And you can compare how each arm of the spectrum described the mission in their headlines to see how bias can affect framing. Ground News' article summaries tells us that the left highlighted what the goal of the mission was, and that nobody was hurt in the aftermath. The center flatly stated that Starship exploded despite flying further than previous tests, and the right highlighted Elon Musk's optimism that this was a big improvement on past tests, framing things in a more favorable manner. Ground News is user-funded so that they can avoid bias themselves, and so if you want a truthful and more objective news source, then go to ground.news/MattLowne, linked below, or scan that QR code to get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. Big thanks to Ground News for sponsoring. Good lord, that's a terrible frame rate. Let's just speed that up in post. And yes, off we go on our way to Duna with our 9 Kerbals on board. Yeah, this thing didn't fly particularly well. It may come as no surprise. So again, like last week where I launched that ridiculous single launch surface base and big space station, I'm going for a kind of a not too aggressive gravity turn. So tipping over at a slightly slower rate than normal because I don't want to be going too sideways during the part where I'm in the thickest parts of the atmosphere. That was a difficult sentence to say for some reason. Just to kind of minimize the amount of drag we're inducing on the craft, right? Speaking of drag, there's that VaporCones there as we kind of get towards the sound barrier. And punching above those beautiful clouds, probably doesn't need saying at this point, but they are of course courtesy of BlackRock's amazing Volumetric cloud mod. One of the most game-changing mods we've ever seen in Kerbal Space Program. And this is like a topical thing. BlackRock is obviously helping out with Kitten Space Agency, and there was a beta that released today, or an alpha? No, a pre-alpha. That was it. I need to get this right because this is like actual reporting now. The pre-alpha release today. I don't have a copy of it, unfortunately. I feel like I can say this because people are going to ask, "Oh, Matt, do you have access to it?" But I haven't been given a copy. It's mostly for industry professionals. Oh, staging event coming up. There we are. I think we can all agree, much more successful staging event than what I showed you in that initial test flight. But yeah, it's the Kitten Space Agency pre-alpha. There'll probably be some point in this commentary where I accidentally say beta and then I forget, and it now goes published now like an idiot. But just putting it on the record, I'm aware it's a pre-alpha, so any future verbal typos or ones that came before, disregard. But yes, it's a pre-alpha for industry professionals, so space agencies, aerospace companies, education places, I think. I'm not quite sure what meets the criteria. Maybe I could reach out and say, look, I'm a content creator that's a fairly significant size when it comes to the Kerbal Space Program topic, But, you know, I'm not really great at beta testing. Like, you know, you guys have seen me play KSP2 in the early days, right? I was just like, oh no, it's bugged out again, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think Kitten Space Agency has any real gameplay in it at the moment. I haven't been following it too closely, to be fair, but I think it's more like just the solar system. It's like Space Engine, basically, where you can kind of put stuff in the solar system and look at it, but it's not like you can build stuff and fly it like you can, because obviously it's pre-alpha, right? So yeah, that was interesting. Just saying, guys, that I am aware that it is a thing and it's out, and no, I do not have it. This is gonna be awkward now where I'm recording this commentary. I do have Discord open, so I might just get a little like this, and it's Dean Hall has just sent me a download, but that probably won't happen. I don't really have much interest in playing a pre-alpha, to be honest. But maybe I'll change my mind if I look into it a bit more. I literally have just seen a Reddit post saying it's available, and that's about as far as I've researched this. So yeah, maybe for a future video. Goodness me, I didn't talk about any aspect of the launch just then, did I? And here I am now in low Kerbin orbit, plotting a course to Duna. Now there are a couple of aspects to the craft that I didn't really cover whilst building it, so I might as well cover that now whilst I'm plotting the bird. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to talk about what's happening right now. Okay? What a novel idea that would be. We have very poor thrust-weight ratio. We have 3, 6, 9, 12 nuclear engines powering this thing. So quite a lot, but the nuclear engines, they're very heavy, they're very low thrust, and you guys might have noticed, this is a very, very big craft, so it ain't going anywhere too fast. So it's going to be a really, really long and inefficient burn if we're going to just do this in one burn, basically. So I've done this a few times in past videos where I've had poor thrust rate ratio. I've split the burn in two. So I'm just doing, it's about 1,100 meters per second, I think, a burn from low Kerbin orbit to Duna. So about 600 meters per second, you get the two burns. Actually, it's 550, isn't it? But, you know, I did biology, not maths. So there we go. So we've done kind of half the burn. Now we're doing the second half of the burn. And there we are. A lovely Duna encounter has been plotted. We are, of course, going to have to do a mid-course correction burn so that we're coming in on an equatorial orbit, just because, although no space station in real life is in equatorial orbit, it just seems right. You know, it just seems like the right thing to do when building space stations in Kerbal Space Program. I guess axial tilt is not a thing in KSP, so I mean, that's not hugely relevant, I suppose, but you know what I mean. We don't have to be mimicking real life, is what I'm saying. But, yeah, no. So anyway, now we're doing that burn and blah, blah, blah. I said that I needed to talk about some things that are on the ship that I didn't talk about in the build time-lapse. So yes, let us discuss those now. So I already mentioned there are the two escape pods to kind of carry a crew of up to 18 Kerbals from Duna orbit back to Kerbin, and they can re-enter and land safely because they have ablative heat shields, and of course they have parachutes, and they won't run out of electricity because they've got solar panels and batteries and all that. In addition to those, there are 3 other vehicles attached to this. One of them is that aforementioned Scout, which I've already mentioned, so I'm not going to rehash again. And then finally, we have 2 satellites that will sit in high Duna orbit. One of them is going to be in a polar Duna orbit. One of them is going to be in a high equatorial Duna orbit. And it won't provide complete coverage for the surface, but it will really maximize the amount of coverage the surface receives. So basically a surface base can just ping to either of those satellites, and then those satellites that I'm going to be placing that are currently attached to the space station, they can either beam directly back to Kerbin because they have a sufficiently large relay dish on them, or if they can't reach Kerbin, they can ping to the deep space interplanetary solar relay network that can then, you know, hop the signal around the sun and reach Kerbin. Okay, so that's kind of, so there are going to be a few different phases to this flight. So the first phase is obviously getting this thing to Duna and getting into a low Duna orbit. Once that's established, we're then going to sort out the satellites network, and then we're going to finally send, well, not finally actually, then we're going to send the Scout lander thing down to the surface of Duna, and then finally, we will do a tour of the space station using the free IVA mod, because I love using the free IVA mod, and I especially love using it to tour space stations. And I haven't really looked too closely at these modules, so it'd be good to, I'm going to do it as like a live commentary, so you can kind of get my live scoop on things. Now, some of the modules on the space station are a little bit redundant. Oh, by the way, I'm doing my capture burn around Duna in a similar fashion to my escape burn from Kerbin, i.e. I'm splitting it across multiple burns. We don't really need to be efficient, but if we don't do it this way, we'll end up with kind of an eccentric orbit, and our periapsis will be really, really low. We'll have to do a corrective burn, so that's why I'm doing it this way. I was going to say, oh, look what's on screen. We have Duna, but we also have Ike. Now, Ike has quite a large sphere of influence. When it comes to building space stations around Duna, generally if you're in low Duna orbit, you're obviously safe, but medium to high Duna, or medium orbit's fine as well, but high Duna orbit, you're at very, very high risk of getting an encounter with Ike that can then send you either careening into the surface of Duna or ejecting you from the Duna system entirely. So, again, not an issue for our space station, but it is going to potentially be an issue for our satellite network. So I'm going to send them up into a really high orbit around Duna, higher than the orbit of Ike and higher than the kind of sphere of influence that Ike has when it goes around its orbit. So here we are deploying those satellites. Now I'm not going to sort them out just yet. I'm just literally detaching from the space station because look, we're in an eccentric orbit already. If you're pointing us to like circularize and then like with the space station, then deploy the satellites and end up having to raise our apoapsis all over again, may as well detach them now whilst we're capturing the Duna system, but we still have a high apoapsis. And yeah, I got a little bit scared that one of them was going to clip the service arm of the solar arrays, but it was all fine in the end. So yeah, as you can see, our orbit is not quite perfectly circular. We have a periapsis of 79 kilometers, or close to 80 kilometers actually, and apoapsis of 123. So I decided to go for 80 kilometers as my target orbit height, for no other reason than it just seemed like a nice, clean, round number, right? So Duna's atmosphere ends at 50 kilometers, so it's 30 kilometers higher. I don't know. What do we think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, eh? And again, if you're enjoying the video, hopefully you're still here, you can leave a like as well. Helps me out with the old algorithm and all that good shebang. Yeah, I just forgot my train of thought now. So let's move on. We've now, oh yeah, so that was it. We've circularized into a roughly 80, like it's not dead accurate, like it's slightly eccentric, but it's less than 500 meters from apoapsis to periapsis. I think I'm happy with this. Now, we have the awkward situation of still having those nuclear engine stages attached, which is kind of ugly looking in my opinion. I want this to have a nice clean look and no engines on board, so we are going to detach them. There we are. As you can see, the nuclear tanks, they're all kind of grouped into groups of 3, and each group of 3 has a solar arm, a battery, a probe core, an SAS unit, and a communication dish so that we can connect them remotely. I didn't want to have to worry about the relay not working, so these could just connect directly to the Kerbal Space Center, and they can deorbit themselves and not leave any debris left in space. So there we are. We've deorbited 3 of 4, and now we are deorbiting number 4 of 4. I must apologize if my commentary is kind of maybe slightly erratic or unhinged or full of kind of typos that I didn't go back and edit. I'm in kind of a, it's quite, this happened, this is like a seasonal thing with this channel, right, where I complain about how hot my room is. I have a thermometer on my desk, and it currently says 33 degrees Celsius, and this is like a room with a big PC in it. It's like a really small room. It's like, I don't know, 2.5 by 3-4 meters. It's not big. And it's got 2 big hot 4K monitors blasting me with heat, a big RTX 4090, etc. PC churning out heat, and I've got to have the window closed, the curtain closed, and the door closed, so I don't get any echo and my neighbors don't hear me and think I'm a crazy person just talking to myself. So what that all means is that I'm maybe not the most lucid of states right now, and also I just really, really desperately want to be able to do this commentary in one shot, so I'm going to faff around, pausing, okay, what did I say wrong, edit it, and then it just wastes time. Although those moments are quite merciful because I do have like a little desktop fan. It's one of those like swamp cooler fans, so it's got a water tank in it, so like the fan blows air at you and then it sprays mist at you as well, and that kind of helps keep you cool. I know there's kind of a few people say they don't work, like I know Technology Connections, brilliant channel by the way, did like a video saying they don't work, but they do kind of work. They're not as good, they're not a replacement for an air conditioner, but what they do well. Ultimately, the water hits your skin, the hot blood in your blood vessels, it transfers heat to that water, and then the water evaporates. That's why it does have an effect, cooling your body temperature down, but it's not perfect. Look at that! I said I didn't do maths earlier, I did science. Well, there you go. There's a little bit of science. Biology, there's a little bit of biology for you. Going back to maybe talking about what's relevant on screen, I am currently reorienting the escape pod. So where they were attached, a Kerbal wouldn't realistically be able to EVA onto them. EVA onto them? That's the wrong way around. They couldn't IVA onto them. They can only EVA onto them. So I have had Ted Nand Kerman EVA onto the ships. He's a pilot, and we can dock them to a docking port that is directly attached to a habitation module so that the crew can conceivably get on board these escape pods in the event of an emergency. So we've already done the first one. I kind of played the footage back quite quickly for the second one because you've seen it, but it might have been harder to follow. Not quite sure. Yeah, that's attached. We can just retract the solar panels. I mean, we don't need to, but kind of makes the station look cleaner on the whole. And I guess it does make sure that the solar panels are definitely not going to get damaged on those things because we really need those to be safe. And speaking of solar panels, let us deploy the solar panels of the main solar arrays. I thought I added the radiators to that same action group, but it turned out I forgot. So not the cleanest of showcases there. I had to quickly scramble with the mouse, deploying the radiators manually. And of course now is what you've all been waiting for, the deployment of that amazing I'm pretty sure, I might have to double check this, but I won't double check, but I'm pretty sure that this is the largest gravity ring that comes with Nertea's Stockalike Station Parts Expansion Redux. What? It's such a mouthful of a name. Nertea's Station Parts mod. And I'm pretty sure this is the biggest gravity ring that you can get with it. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. But yeah, look at that. I'm very much looking forward to exploring that gravity ring. But right now we need to do kind of the next phase of the mission, which is establishing the relay network. Now this is not the most efficient way of building a relay network in Kerbal Space Program. It'd be better to have like a nice series of satellites placed equally apart in kind of a circular equatorial Duna orbit. That will get us a nice bit of coverage, but this is just easier. We aren't going to worry about orbital periods and deploying things at the right moments. Just send both of them to an eccentric orbit and have one circularized circularized to a polar orbit. I am not going back and changing that. That's staying in. And then we'll have one. We'll do this. So circularize into a equatorial orbit. Now, we don't need it to be perfectly circular, so I didn't make it perfectly circular. But we'll kind of aim to get it roughly circular. So, I don't know, within 10 kilometers of each other. I can't really remember what the values were, to be honest, but they're more or less. It's like I think it was like to the nearest million was like how I rounded it up in the end. So let's see. We're going to perform our circularization burn. What did I call it? My polari, but it's a bit of a tongue twister, that. Whatever I was trying to say, that. And there we are. We have a nice polar orbit for this satellite and a nice equatorial orbit for the other. And these will generally provide pretty good coverage of the surface of Duna. And I guess Ike as well, because it's sort of the area, the orbits of those satellites contains the orbit of Ike. And yeah, and the space station will help with the rest. And to be honest, the surface base, I'm probably just going to stick a massive relay dish on that can just connect directly to our deep space network. So all of this is irrelevant anyway. But now it's sort of future-proofed things. So if we had a smaller outpost on like Ike or something, or the next part of this mission is going to be that Scout. If the Scout loses connection to the space station, which has a massive array on it, it can connect to one of the two satellites that we just placed in, again, polar and equatorial high Duna orbit. And speaking of the Scout, there it is, being deployed. So my primary objective is trying to find a nice, interesting and cool location on the surface of Duna where we could build a surface base. The secondary, but also kind of the more important of the two objectives, if that somehow works, is making sure we find somewhere flat. So I had a look at Duna, and I thought maybe we got some like riverbeds here, or former riverbeds, like a canyon there. So maybe the canyon would be good because I'm guessing the floor of the canyon will hopefully be relatively flat, while the walls of the canyon will provide interesting geological views for you, the viewer, when I eventually do that video, and for the Kerbals who will live there. Look at that, there's the canyon coming into view during that brief cutaway to the gameplay screen. And yeah, I think this looks relatively okay. So we're going to come down for a nice smooth landing. This thing can easily turn retrograde because although it's got wings to help it glide, Duna's atmosphere is very thin, so it doesn't. We can flip ourselves over fairly easily, basically, is what I'm saying. So yeah, is there anything else I need to add that's pertinent to this moment? I don't think so. So basically, I'm not aiming for anywhere specific at the moment. I'm just aiming to roughly land within the canyon, and then we will launch again and fly a bit more carefully to a given point of interest. So there we go. We've got the parachutes deployed to just make sure we land safely and holds us tail first as we touch down. This footage is playing back very fast. I will slow it down to real-time speed for that final moment of touchdown, so you can kind of see how visually it should look when coming down at a safe touchdown speed. So here we are. We're going to have to ignite the engine because the parachute is not slowing us down quite enough. Again, Duna has a very thin atmosphere. And there we are, a little bit of a slide, but luckily the Scout has it's very light, right? So won't slide around too much. Now I'm just going to eyeball the ground, I should say, and try and find somewhere relatively flat. And I feel like this area here, I mean, First of all, unfortunately, there is no completely flat region in this area that I can see. But this part here looks fairly decent. There's like this sort of a shallowed out area. It's not a crater, but like a flatter region than most parts of this canyon bed. So we're going to just decelerate completely now. Got to do it under engine power, of course, because we've now deployed our parachute. And I think this area here looks pretty good. So this kind of tells me that when we build the surface base, we're going to have some means of a self-leveling system. So they can, well, you know, you can self-level, and it needs to come here, basically. I always start those sentences thinking I have more to say, and then I don't actually have quite a lot to say. But there we are. The lander has landed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut to live commentary Matt to do the tour of the space station. Thank you, editing Matt. Love that guy. Here we are back in low Duna orbit. I'm going to fire up the gravity ring. Now I should have mentioned during the commentary that you need 3 engineer Kerbals minimum to be able to deploy this thing. So I made sure that 3 of my Kerbals of the 9 were indeed engineers, and there we are. The gravity ring is spinning, so let's go on board and have a little wander. So this is the amazing free IVA mod. Let's just close or move this down in case I need a reminder of the controls. There we are. So we are in the core module, a core module. I'm not sure. Anyone that remembers my last tour, like live tour, knows how not great these are. Wow, my volume is very loud. Let me just turn that down. There we go. So I'm going to see if we can go to the bottom of the station first, then to the top. So we've got a little cupola at the very bottom. Oh, I love this piece. This is one of my favorite pieces in the mod. So so we actually need to go the other way, right? So looking down, I think that's how it works. Let's just see. Yes. Oh, no, yes. Yeah, so maybe we should go. So what was the module I just went into? I guess it was this one. So yeah, what I did was the correct way. So we'll go to the top first, and then go down. Clearly, I'm going delusional in the heat. So let's go back to that little module just there. Oh, I've now gone the other way. This is going extremely well. Right, we're going to go down here. Oh, yes, the hatch was already open. I should have really clocked that, shouldn't I? So then we should be able to see Duna. Yeah, there we are. So we're going away from it. So we're going to this hatch. This should be the top cupola. There might be an adapter in between, but there we are. The top cupola. Giving us wonderful views of nothing. But occasionally Ike will, pass by, I would have thought. And then look at this. Oh, this is a shame. This is unfortunate. They're upside down. I mean, obviously I know it's irrelevant because it's in, microgravity, but it would have been nice from a tour perspective. But hey, maybe Kerbals are like bats, right? They just sleep upside down. Anyway, we'll now continue. So this is like the command module for when the craft was in transit, and I guess it can still serve as the station command. I haven't really put that much thought into the lore of this. One of the modules, in fact, we're going to return to our seat quickly. We've got 2 storage modules full of ore. This is just meant to be a placeholder for things like food supply, water supply, things like that. I know you can change the thing in the vehicle assembly building, like what's inside these tanks, but I was happy to say, let's just pretend, right? We can just use the power of imagination, right? So that's why we got 18,000 units of ore. It's just to sort of simulate food, water, and all that, and that should hopefully sustain the crew until we have a surface base in place that can mine things like water, like from ice, and grow potatoes and stuff, could keep the station supplied that way. So here we have, I guess this is like the living quarters for when we were in transit to Duna. So we've got little bedrooms here, lovely stuff. Now that we're in kind of Duna orbit, the Kerbals won't really be living on board these rooms. They'll be living on board the gravity ring, which of course was stowed away for the duration of the transit. Now I think about it, I'm not quite sure why I decided to do it that way, but I guess it justifies having this long, immoving branch of the space station, if that makes sense. A little dining area just here. I suspect something similar on this side, and I suspect it incorrectly. We have computers where we can process data, and oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. Well, I guess there's hydrogen and H2O, isn't there? But water. Let's continue the tour. So we're now. I'm just waiting until we get to the the centrifuge, not the centrifuge, the gravity ring. I'll say it uses centrifugal force. Not true. It's actually centripetal force. For anyone tries to correct me there, even though I just corrected myself, so whatever. So all these things, they look like they should be functioning in more normal gravity, right? Ah, visit Duna. That's a good idea. So yeah, just more science labs and stuff. I'll leave download links for this mod, and you know, I advise highly to get free IVA to really enhance it if you want to explore these modules more in detail yourself. So we have another like little command module area by the looks of things. Oh, this is really cool actually. So I feel like this is kind of more suited to a surface base, because obviously you've got staircases which you wouldn't need for a space station. Wow, this is really cool. So this is our laser cannon operation platform. I'm just gonna go ahead and say. So yeah, this would be better suited for like a surface base where there's gravity to make use of those stairs. But I don't know, I just find that this mod, I always struggle building surface bases because it kind of lends itself to, you know, building towers basically. And it's really hard to build tall, slender towers in Kerbal Space Program because, as I mentioned earlier in this video, a lot of the planets don't have completely flat surfaces, so a tower would just fall down. Now, can I pick these up? I think it's left, alt, left, click. Ah, I can. Oh yeah, the control scheme was at the bottom, wasn't it? And I can throw it. Hey, look at that. Everyone says, oh, did you know you can do this? And I did know that, I always forget to showcase it. So these are my fish. And that's Steve. That's Duncan there. There's Ian. There's Jeffrey. So these are the fish. Eat them. This is actually the hydroponics module, right? So there should be a door. I'm guessing this door? No, that's EVA. Oh, too late. Yep, I was right. We're in the kind of grow rooms. So we go back on board. There should be another door. Maybe I'm just blind. Is it this door? Open hatch. Yes, this one. So the view is kind of glitchy because I guess Free IVA uses the internal view thing for Kerbal Space Program. So we kind of have this X-ray view of the entire space station. But these are the planets that we're growing. Our little in-space allotment there. Now let's try and locate the hatch that I came through. Oh no, this is a disaster. Is it up there? There it is. Yep, it's all right. I saved it. Oh, and we will continue floating our way through the space station. I really hope this is like good. This bit of the commentary, it feels like I'm just having to like improvise, but I've just recorded like 25 minutes or whatever of commentary, and now I've like stopped my fan again so I could like record this without having the whir interrupting things. I didn't say anything about this module because that's just another copy of the growing thing. I think this should be the centrifuge. Nope, I thought wrong. Not centrifuge. I've already said this better. This is a science lab module. I know this one. I recognize this one. So this is a science lab. So, because, you know, what's the point of having a space station if you can't do science? I do realize that everything is upside down. At the moment, I've got the station pointing radially in so that the solar panels are like facing away from Duna and not being occluded by the gravity ring. But maybe I'll have to just have this thing facing radial out so that everything is the right way up from a camera perspective. So, 3 guesses what this module is. That's an EVA hatch there. And this is the this is the main event, right? So, actually, Joe what? I'm going to be a tease. I'm going to save this till last because it's the best part of the station. And arguably one of the best parts in the entire Nertea space station mod. I'm not going to say the full name again. So, let's open up this hatch and have a little ganders what's through here. Because I don't think there's that much more space station to explore, right? So, yep, that's it. This is the last module. So, it's this a big cupola, and we get a lovely view of Duna. So how about that for a great little spot? Right. Anyway, it's on to the main event. See, I told you we wouldn't have to wait very long. But now we've got to like try and clumsily aim towards one of the hatches. So this is kind of scary, right? Like, it's not a problem in Kerbal Space Program, but in real life, this would be a very scary module to be in, because if you got stuck in the middle, like, how do you then get to the edge? Because you'd be floating there. Like, you'd probably take, like, a shoe off or something and throw it to create some sort of momentum. Because, as we know, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But, yeah. That'd be a scary thing. There's a video, like, the Japanese module of the ISS has a part in it, which I think is the Japanese module, has a part in it where you can get stuck in the middle. There's, like, videos of an astronaut doing the air quotes thing, stuck in the middle. Like, he managed to get himself to the side eventually, but it took him a scary amount of time to get there. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, obviously it's not a problem on the ISS because you can just shout for crewmates and they'll come and get you, but yeah, here I'm morphing through this keyboard here. So this is the Gaim of the space station, and underneath I believe there's just some storage. Yep, just some nice storage. We can store whatever it is Kerbal's store. Oh no, am I stuck? Oh no, see, if this were an edited video, I would now cut to me being free again. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. No, please. Oh, there we are. It was all fine. I'm never going under the hatches again. We will open this hatch and continue this amazing tour. So we have a little science lab here. And who knows what's down there? Not going to find out. Looks like more storage, doesn't it? And again, another little science lab by the looks of things. And again, another little science lab by the looks of things. We've got growing our potatoes. I'm assuming this is probably a homage to The Martian. Great film. I'm sure this audience doesn't need telling of that. Doesn't need that telling to them. Another little miscellaneous module. Now, I did say, guys, that there were, like, bedrooms on the ring. I'm sure there were. I'm hoping I got that right now, because I'm not going to go back and edit that part of the commentary. Let's just continue the tour. Let's see. So, another little those are the bedrooms. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to have to break the code I just set and showcase them. So I think, yep, there's one. I should probably count. Make sure we've got 9. I guess they can just sort of like hot swap. So we've got a little water closet here. So we've got 1 bed, 2 bed. Everyone keep count, because I might just get it wrong and say, oh, now we're on 5, and actually we're on 2 or whatever. So, what's this? Kerbal Space Program. I'll have to look into that. I wonder what that's a reference to. Are the bedrooms here? Oh, there might be. There are 3 as well. So 3, 4. Yes, good. We're almost halfway. I really should have just like actually. Oh, look, we got 2 more weathers of things. 5. Could it be 6? So we just need 3 more. I feel like we've almost explored the whole ring, so now I'm getting a bit worried. So, oh no, and I'm getting worried because there's no like way for me to jump off the side here. Oh, never mind, there was. So yeah, we're on 6. So, are these 3? Nope, there's just 2. 7, 8. Oh, there's definitely only 1 bed per thing. Yeah, okay, this is looking good. There we are. I realized I should have been talking just then. I was like, I've just been playing silently. So, come on. 1 more bedroom. Give it to me. Let's go. Come on, Nertea. Nertea. Come on. Please say put 1 more room in. Oh, we have a closed hatch, which is a good sign, which means I've not been on this part of the ring yet. So, generic science room. Oh, the suspension is killing me. Oh, we have rooms down here, which I'm just going to pretend are bedrooms because, you know, I'm kind of at the end of my run. I don't want this video to go on too long, and I realize this has been a very waffly, kind of overall not very good tour of the station ring. So, is that Doom? Oh, it's been so long since I played the original Doom. I can't remember what it looks like now. All those like Doom and Quake games all bleed together, don't they? So, if I'm correct, yeah, and there we are. I was right. So we're at the end, or the beginning. We're at the beginning and we're at the end of the little tour of the space station. Let's just go. Joe, I can't be bothered to like climb somewhere. And no, we have deviated from the position I wanted. Oop, that's the wrong button. Radial in is what we want, because I want to get a nice shot. Look at that, the ring works really well in time warp, by the way. Like if I do normal time warp, see, it still spins, which is really nice. And yeah, oh look at that. That's a great little shot there, isn't it? Yeah, got Ike over here, the station here, and just here are the names of my Patreon supporters and my YouTube channel members who make all of this content possible. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Maybe struggled a bit during the commentary in this heat, but I do it for you guys. If you want to see your name in lights there, then you can join via the links below and get access to the craft file seen in this very video, as well as an ad-free version of this video. And yes, that's basically it. Thank you. I mean, obviously I'm doing this live, right? So I don't know how long the end